And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird right here from Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockren along with you on this Wednesday morning, getting you ready for a 7-game NBA slate. Lofty, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Had a hockey game tonight. We lost a 4-2 loss, but I had the first goal and I had the primary assist, a nice little flip pass on the second one. So
There you go.
You win some, you lose some. But I was just thinking, like, everyone kind of knows that I vape now, and like I'm not proud of it by any stretch. It's not something that I think is cool. I mean, I just do it, and I don't really care if anyone thinks it's not cool, because it's not. But it tastes good, and it's not smoking. And I was just thinking back. We've been doing this podcast so long. You remember the listeners used to listen for the lighter flick.
Yeah, that's right.
It'd be like 10 minutes into the show and you'd hear the
We
lighter
get tweets about it, yeah.
Yeah, no more of that. That just came to mind. But
the draw of the vape is what they wait for, the bubble.
Yeah. I back away from the mic.
They don't hear my bong rips. It's really weird.
No, they don't.
It's
ever.
Really strange.
Ever. Yeah, it's a 2-footer too. It's surprising.
Hey,
yeah,
go big or go home, right?
I tell you, I kind of pissed off with Ben Simmons. Not because Ben Simmons turned the ball over 11 times. I mean, that's not necessarily great either. He scored 11 points to go along with it. Usually when a point guard turns the ball over 10, 11 times, they put up like 30, 40 points too, right? Not Ben. I'm kind of mad at the young fella because as a Sixers fan, and this kind of this is viable for, this is relevant for daily fantasy too. All off season he's hanging out with, what's her name, Jenner, or which Jenner was it? He was with a Jenner, right?
Yeah, I
don't know which one, but he was with.
I'm not gonna try to play.
Right, and I'm not gonna knock him for that. Like, I'd have done the same. But
Kylie. I know there's a Kylie. That's all.
There's a Kendall. There's a bunch. That's not even important. Point is that this dude is dominant as a rebound, as a passer, around the basket. Is one of the only probably other than Giannis, is like the only 6'11" dude that can do what he does at that size. And developing a jump shot, even a decent jump shot, would make him truly an elite player. I don't think there's any disputes. Until he does, if he never does, he will never be an elite player. That's factual. What bothers me, though, is it seems like he did nothing to work on anything in terms of long-range shooting or jump shooting over the offseason. And right before the season started, he was asked by reporters about, taking threes, and he goes, something like, ain't no way I'm shooting any, like, don't expect me to shoot any threes this year. It's kind of one of those things. A game like this, you have 11 turnovers. The Sixers cut the lead down to 7 after being down by like 30. And Ben Simmons was completely taken out of the game because Toronto did to him what the Boston Celtics did in the second round of the playoffs last season, which is force him to shoot. Don't give him anything in the lane. Just completely take him out of the game from a scoring perspective. That's what Toronto did, and look what happens: 11 turnovers and 11 points because he doesn't have any interest in shooting. At least Markelle Fultz, granted, he did used to have a shot. Markelle Fultz hasn't even been lighting it up, but at least the guy's willing to let him fly, and at least is trying to regain what he once had. It's like Ben Simmons knows that he could be one of the best if he just developed even like a decent, I'm not talking shooting 48%. You just shoot 30% from three. At least make it so they can't just completely sag off you and say, all right, dude, take this 14-footer. It's that's my beginning of podcast rant, but it definitely is bothersome. And we saw Boston and then Toronto do it. This team is going to entirely blow the rebuild unless Ben Simmons learns how to shoot and cares about it.
Yes, shoots even 25%. Like it's just the idea that he'll take those shots and hit enough of them to be dangerous in close games. And if a defense can sag off him, stuff the lane and force Embiid to do more work in the lane and force the Covingtons and others of the world to have to push even those the 4-footers to 8 feet. Those become less less optimal shots. And I agree with you. If Simmons can develop any sort of outside shot, anything.
Yeah, and he's not even like Embiid is not even he's not a great 3-point shooter, but if you watch every time he tees up from three, defenders close out on him, and it opens things up if he needs it. Like he owned last year, he shot like 30% from three. It wasn't good, but they don't just give him that shot. And if Simmons could even be remotely effective from three, it would, I mean, it would just, or even from mid range. Like I'm not, mid range is not what you're looking for, but anything to where they have to play you tight when you're bringing the ball up. So yeah, it's a shame because it's one of those talents where it's like this dude could, think about it, if Ben Simmons had a 3-point shot or even, a decent mid range jumper, how do you stop him?
You don't. I mean,
I don't think you do.
It's the old
Sports
Center line of you can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. You just keep
right.
Try to play keep away.
Right. Exactly.
All right. We do have 7 games here. I did not play any Klay Thompson the other day after asking you about him at the end of the podcast.
I shouted you out on that one.
That was fine. Here we are. He's up to 6,400, which is still honestly for the upside for him a decent price point. We'll get to shooting guard though momentarily. As always, we'll go position by position. It is 7 games. As always, a reminder, you get the deep dive from Lofty, which ported over there from FanVice over to here, Osmo.com. You can also check out Spag's article most days. You get Josh on the early morning NBA strategy show with Lofty, with Adam. Some days, other days he goes solo. And then you get the deeper dive, Adam and Lofty on the bigger slates. And you get Eddie and Spags, or Eddie and Josh, up to lineup lock over on YouTube. Lots of stuff available as far as rankings and projections behind the paywall at Osmo.com. Get a free week by using the promo code EARLYBIRD. EARLYBIRD is your promo code over on Osmo.com. So, Dave, we're here at point guard to start. And we have a quick glance here. Davis and James are our 2 10K plus players. So no one at point guard above a 10K on this slate. You have Curry, Oladipo, who will probably push over to shooting guard, D-Mitch and Zach LaVine. Luka Doncic back to being just point guard eligible on DraftKings.
Unreal.
Take that for what it's worth. And then we get into more mixed bag of point guards and shooting guards. Dennis Smith Jr. at 5,900 against the Lakers. Some good matchups, some top talents, obviously, off of this slate. But we do have guys who have some high upside here. What are some of your favorite point guard plays?
Yeah, real quick. We'll just hit on these injuries quickly so we can get them out of the way. Anthony Davis questionable. Elfrid Payton has already been ruled out. Now, the Pelicans said that Davis's availability for Wednesday's game against the Warriors will be determined following morning shoot around. So that's good. Like that's really nice. And that was actually the case on Monday the Friday.
Friday. No, it was Monday.
It was yesterday. It was 2 days ago. Yeah. Yeah. So Payton out. Randall's going to play again. I think they're just going to keep calling him probable. And it was good that we finally saw some minutes. Davis questionable. Devin Booker doubtful. That's another one. And then Wiggins, Favors, Alec Burks, if you want to count that. Those guys are all questionable. And then Darius Miller is doubtful. I only throw that out there because they already have a couple guys down. I think and another kind of big one. Josh Jackson is questionable. So is Isaiah Cannon. So I'm not sure, like, if that's the case. Well, you know what? I'll start off at point guard. We're talking point guard, right? So you have a lot of guys that might not play. Booker, we don't expect him to play. When you're ruled doubtful, it's very, very rare that you ever play. Isaiah Cannon is unfortunately a game time decision for the only game. Well, there's 3 games at 10:30 and three games at 8 and 1 at 7:30. 7:30 lock, by the way. So if Cannon doesn't play, maybe we'll get maybe we'll see if he went through shoot around at least. That'll give us some clarity. You could get Eli Okubo, who played 31 minutes against OKC and had himself a nice game. He's 3,700 against the Spurs team that I'm just going to keep putting this out there to get it in everyone's head. They're not going to be able to defend prevent penetration, defend in transition, protect on drives to the rim, all of that stuff. They lost Danny Green. who could defend the perimeter. They lost Kawhi Leonard, who could defend everybody. They have a human pylon in Pau Gasol at the 5 and still haven't found the answer there from a defensive standpoint. Okubo would be undoubtedly a top value option. I think even if, well, actually, Cannon played 6 minutes and left in that game. So at least we know that he would be getting like 30 plus minutes of run in a plus matchup, pace down matchup, but still a plus matchup as a ball handler. And I'm really curious. Just run a couple names off for me that you like. I want to see how many touches he had in that game, because I have a feeling it may have been a decent amount.
I think that you're going to turn your attention to the likes of Jamal Murray and, Doncic in this matchup with the Lakers. You have to keep an eye on the back injury. He played well in this matchup with last time out against San Antonio, as Dave talks about that. Obviously plays a bit of a part into what we see in this matchup for Phoenix. I think Doncic steps up again here. 7,300 is price point. I wonder your take there, Dave, on if there's a ceiling to the price point you're comfortable playing. Luka did have 6 turnovers in that game, but 50 DraftKings points will sure make you feel okay about 6 turnovers when he has 31 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, and a steal. Is there a price point for Doncic overall that you feel comfortable pushing up to, or is this with the Lakers matchup, with the pace up in play, still a viable price point for someone like him?
Yeah, I'll give you that answer in just a second, but boy, do I have an interesting one for you, Dan. You know how many touches Okubo had in this game?
I do not. I have not looked that up.
90.
Wow.
90. That's like
how many minutes?
31. That's around like what Westbrook and Ben Simmons average in terms of touches. Pretty nice. I think we'll take that to the bank all day long. I'm really hoping Cannon doesn't play. And honestly, even if he does, I'm still probably going to have some interest, because this Okubo can actually play when with Cannon. Like, if you want to develop this young team with DeAndre Ayton and Booker and all these guys, like, why are you even playing Cannon big minutes? Okubo led the team, 72 passes made, 81 passes received. The next closest was Ryan Anderson with 39. He had 11 potential assists. The next closest was Trevor Ariza with 5. So Josh Jackson was down in like all of those. He played 21 minutes. Yeah, just really, really keep a close eye on that, because I'm high on this kid. And if he gets the start, I'm telling you, I will say right now, this feels like a game or a spot where I'll play 150 lineups. I'll probably play 100% Okubo. I think I might actually do that. I did the same thing with Okogie. Okogie. I always struggle with that one, and it paid off. Sometimes you just got to roll the dice if you think they're going to get the run. Especially point guard is that position where if you're going to do it with a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands.
Yep.
All right. Luka Doncic. By the way, super impressed with your pronunciation right out of the gate. Beginning of the season on Doncic. You've really impressed me. You've nailed it.
That's why I'm here.
I mean, it's not. That's why I'm really impressed. It's absolutely not why you're here.
Nowhere near why I'm here. Go ahead.
73 is really not that high, right? I mean, you loved him at 66, 6,700, but I also liked him at shooting guard, small forward.
Right.
Against the Lakers, 7,300. Yeah, no, this is perfectly fine. I got no issues with that at all. I'm going to pull FanDuel up right now. Do you have FanDuel up by any chance?
I don't.
I'll pull it up just so we can start getting some salaries over there, because I'm curious. Generally, they're always $1,000 or more expensive than they are on DraftKings, and then when they're not, it means they're probably a good value play. But Doncic, man, kid's a rookie, but you kind of expected this type of production from him. He's special. He's one of the few Euro players that gets drafted real early, and I really like. 25% usage. It's funny too, because his rebound and assist rates are not that impressive. It's just kind of the fact that he does enough of everything on top of his scoring to be viable. And against the Lakers, when you're talking about a game that has a over-under of 235, unsurprisingly the highest on the slate by almost 10 points, and the Lakers are 6.5-point favorites. But the truth is, Is anyone scared of this team right now? The only reason I'd be scared of this team is if you take LeBron James at face value when he said, like, you don't want to be around me when I get frustrated, and he comes out here and drops like 100 fantasy points. That's the only way that this team is scaring me. I think they're like 2-6 or something, and they're 2-5, whatever they are. They haven't been that good. So unless LeBron single-handedly thrusts them to a victory, it shouldn't be a blowout. Now, we talked about Okubo, who is going to be an amazing value if Cannon is out, even maybe if he isn't. I'd take 25 minutes running the point from him. And you talked about Doncic. Oladipo's still up there in price. Always a tournament play at this spot because it's the New York Knicks. But, yeah, Curry's down below 10K now, and he does kind of interest me. If Davis is out, this game could get out of hand really quick. But Curry does definitely below 10K offer more than he does when he gets up, around that 10-3, 10-2 range, which, look, it's not a huge difference, but it makes you feel a little bit better. And he's just offered a lot of upside. Even in the big Klay Thompson game, he played 25 minutes, had 49 fantasy points. You're getting the production from him night in and night out. The same thing can be said for Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is, and it's real tough for me to point guard, shooting guard thing. You're just going to have to deal with it. There's too much MPE now. LaVine has a 34% usage rate this season. And my guess is among players that are playing, 20 plus minutes per game. It's got to be, I'm thinking top 3.
It's Giannis and then him. Yeah.
Okay, so he's top 2?
It's Giannis, then LaVine, and then Booker, Harden, Kemba.
Walker, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, Giannis, LaVine, Booker, Westbrook, Harden. Okay, and then you have Oladipo up there, and DeRozan at 30%. Embiid at 30%. Curry at 30%. Yep. Hardaway. A lot of guys in that mid 29 range where
exactly.
all of them.
Yep. I mean, and Marquise Chris in his 1 minute has a 33%.
You always got to filter by minutes. So LaVine against Denver. I mean, this is a really bad Chicago team, so it could get out of hand quickly. But I don't see Denver just demolishing, or I don't see Denver crushing them like Golden State did in Chicago in the first 24 minutes. So not a huge concern of mine. I also think Dennis Smith. If you want to talk about going against the grain, if you think Doncic is a little expensive, Dennis Smith is still going out there and putting up 30-plus fantasy points every night, outside of one game where I, of course, played him against Chicago. He had 11 fantasy points. Against San Antonio, Utah, Atlanta, Minnesota, Phoenix, he's giving you 30-plus, 29-1. But he's still sub 6K. And this is against a Lakers team. You're not worried about Rondo and Lonzo Ball defense. You're just not. But I think you also have to like Jamal Murray. Now, the prices come up a little bit, but Murray is really evolving into that player that is not going to give you 15 one night and 45 the next. I think you're going to finally start seeing some consistency from him. And then the real question is, we don't know what's up with Anthony Davis, because if Davis is out, then, Drew Holiday comes into the conversation. Otherwise, you're not playing him over Doncic. You're not playing him over LaVine, who I actually have a slightly ahead of Doncic. You're probably, I'd rather pay down to even a Dennis Smith. I'd play a Jamal Murray at a $200 discount. So that's really contingent upon Anthony Davis. And outside of that, that's probably where I'm at in the mid-range. Also, one more guy, Lonzo Ball is 5K flat on DraftKings. He's had 2 terrible games, like flat out awful games. You see his fantasy totals in these 12 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also has the upside. I don't think we can ignore Lonzo at 5K. It's kind of what I say about Nicholas Batum. Like, they're going to disappoint you a lot of times, but when they're that cheap, they have to at least be on your radar.
The upside for I was talking in chat with Andrew Barron. I think it was a group chat, but talking between THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dragic the other night. And he said, you have to go for the THJ nuclear option, right? Like the upside for him to hit, 7 of 13 threes and go for 40 points. And I think that's sort of Ball here at 5K. Triple-double upside is not that out of the question at that price point. And when you have that opportunity, it has to at least be part of the conversation, not necessarily where you're going in cash games, but when you're talking about building GPP lineups and trying to find the highest upside with potentially the lowest floor, but the highest upside, you have to at least consider it. Shooting guard, you mentioned a lot of the guys here already, to be honest, that may cross over. You do have the likes of DeRozan and Jimmy Butler, who are small forward shooting guard eligible. I mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. in that comment. Actually, he's here as well. Who are some of your favorite shooting guards here before we move on to small forward?
One more. I think Ricky Rubio against his former team at 5,600 is a pretty solid option.
Wow, you're talking about revenge narrative.
No. That's how I speak, because it just sounds better against his former Timberwolves squad. Not revenge whatsoever. He's on a better team now anyway. No, just because I think it's a good matchup. But similar to Lonzo Ball, very up or down. Anyway, shooting guard. We talked about a few guys already. We won't dive back into that. Curry's eligible there as well. DeMar DeRozan, man, he keeps getting pretty low ownership because his price tag is soared, but he's producing almost every single night. I mean, he has 60 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. He's demolishing. And what I love about DeRozan is last year we saw 2 things. One, DeRozan started to take more 3-pointers. That was a great sign, because you can only live as a great player or a pretty good player for so long when you're attempting 1 3 per game. He was attempting almost 4 3-pointers per game last year. This year, not as much. It's back down to where it was. I think we'll see an increase. San Antonio is going to need that. But he's also attempting 22.5 field goals per game. The big thing, though, and I'm sure you've noticed this, his assist rate is at 36.4%. And you may say, yeah, well, it's certainly due for regression. Is it? Dejounte Murray's out for the season. Kawhi Leonard's gone. Tony Parker's gone. Patty Mills isn't a passer. Who do they have to serve that role outside of DeMar DeRozan? They don't. So now you're getting a dude that can score 30 or 40 points in a game. He has 28 or more in all but 1. That was a blowout loss. And who has 8 or more assists in 4 of 6. So, and his rebound rate is significantly higher. Defensive rebound rate's at 16.1%. Like, DeRozan's numbers are filthy. Usage is at 30, assist at 36, just everything. Pick and roll, he's operating one of the highest in the league, might be the highest. Drives per game up there. Just everything about DeRozan right now screams, play me, and he's expensive, so people are backing off. I get that. I understand why you don't want to pay that much for DeRozan, but you have to consider that DeRozan right now is different than DeRozan and than the DeRozan in Toronto, because the DeRozan in Toronto had a Kyle Lowry. There is no Kyle Lowry in San Antonio to serve as a facilitator when DeRozan's not feeling up to it. He leads the entire league in drives with 21.5 per game. And you're also talking about a guy that is just producing monster numbers everywhere. The last thing I'll say on DeRozan is, if you look at potential assists per game, he is top 10. Yeah, Dan, DeMar DeRozan is averaging almost 13 potential assists per game. Incredible.
The entire offense flows through, and every piece of it. So doesn't surprise me. Now, the pace scares me a bit there for how San Antonio has been playing to start the year. But when you look at the percentages, it's all going through him. Like, every single thing goes through him. So not too surprised to see those elevated usage and potential assists and potential points on his docket. Any other shooting guards that stand out here for you as we make our way through a 7-game slate?
I mean, I obviously love DeRozan just because people, I still think, will kind of avoid it. Maybe the 60 fantasy points in 3 of 4 could change that. I'd like Donnie Mitchell, Zach LaVine. Again, we'll wait on Drew Holiday news. I think this could be a tough spot for Hardaway, but he's still under 7K and he's still shooting 20 plus times per game. So, I mean, that's really just really difficult to ignore. And then if you've noticed, old D'Angelo Russell has fallen below 6K. And against Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith, this is a pretty good spot. I also think this game, excuse me, sees a decent amount of scoring. I think it goes over that 214 total. I think Russell's actually in a pretty good spot. Probably should have mentioned him at point guard, but there are a lot of good plays at point guard and at shooting guard. You're going to have to find the right ones for sure. And I don't know if you have to punt. Okubo would obviously be the guy. I think at shooting guard, though, in terms of punts, you could probably do better elsewhere. And you know how I feel about this. The shooting guards and small forwards, I hate punting that position because you just don't touch the ball enough, which means that unless you're shooting a ton, which generally doesn't happen with wings that are 3K, unless like you're a Josh Jackson and he's not a punt anyway, that runs the point, or you're somebody that can rack up the defensive stats. Yeah, I don't want to really play you because you need to shoot 5 for 6 from 3 just to be okay. So it's a tough position for me to get behind when we're talking about real cheap players.
Makes sense to me. Obviously, lots of connection between point guard and shooting guard, then shooting guard, small forward. When we talk MPE, Dave talking small forward on DraftKings there, small forwards over on FanDuel, a different nut to crack when it comes to roster construction, obviously, and where you're trying to get things working. Josh does a pretty good job of taking some FD takes in his NBA strategy show, and be sure to check out the rankings and such over on FanDuel for Osmo.com, which you can get by using the promo code EarlyBird. CEMAC, it's that easy. Like, you just get right into it, you drop it. Love you, buddy. Let's continue on here to small forward. Obviously, you've talked to Rosen. You have THJ here. You talked to me, Butler. We have LeBron, KD. You also have Mirotic here. AD out could influence ownership on Mirotic at 7,500. Then you have guys like Kyle Kuzma, Rudy Gay, Jabari Parker, all down to 6K. A position that I do feel, because of MPE, has not been the dregs we've seen in the past few years. We've had some good crossover between shooting guard players and, Luka Doncic.
Power forward's been the weak one.
When they allowed Luka Doncic to be a small forward. But there are some pieces here. There's some ways to go. DeRozan obviously being one of them. Roster construction may deem where you end up playing him. But who are some of maybe 2 or 3 other names here at small forward that for writing it up or for player pool purposes will start your day on Wednesday for this slate?
I've been pretty good at predicting those LeBron James passion games, right? This has to feel like one. It feels like one. This guy was just talking about, you got to be patient, you got to do this, you got to do that. He said to reporters after that loss to Minnesota, where Butler buried him at the end, we talk about patience, but you can't have reoccurrence of the same thing. If you're doing the same things over and over and over and expecting the same results, that's insanity. By the way, that is the most overused phrase in the world. I swear, I hear it once a day, and somebody always thinks that, you sound smart saying it. I hear it. Am I wrong? Do you not hear that everywhere?
It is a very overused, and it's always like somewhat misquoted.
Always,
there's something missing.
Dude, I worked at a drug and alcohol. I was a drug and alcohol therapist for 6 years. I heard that shit every single day. And don't get me wrong, technically it's not the real definition of insanity, but it's what they say. And it comes from the AA and the NA rooms, and he's not wrong. Like, if you're doing the same things, you expect it, sure. But I just hate that. Anyway, he says, so we have to get better. We can't keep having the same mistakes over and over. He said, and then they asked him something. He said, you probably don't want to be around me when my patience runs out. And then James added, I'm serious. We've got to figure it out. So there you go. We got to figure it out one way or another on Wednesday on our home floor, and we got to be really good. We are all in this together. I mean, this is a LeBron game. Just saying, man. This is a LeBron game. He might go 10 for 10 in the first quarter.
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. The only concern is that he only plays 3 quarters because he has mopped the floor with Dallas, blown their doors off by halftime.
But
And
look at what Clay did. Like Clay played what,
yep,
26 minutes and
yep,
put up 50 point. Like it's
yeah,
possible, and that's why I think you do a good job. And I think all the guys at Osmo and most analysts when it comes to NBA realize blowouts don't matter as much as people want to make them matter. And so these great players will get theirs typically because they're part of the blowout. They're part of
right.
those who are
Unless you're on
making
the
that
losing
happen.
side of it.
Right. Well, right. And that's fine. But I think LeBron here makes total sense. What about mid or cheap guys? You have DeRozan already at the top end as well. Are there other names that at least player pool wise you think are worth stashing in some spreadsheets somewhere?
So Jabari played 26 minutes in that game where they got their clocks cleaned by Golden State. They got their clocks cleaned by Charlotte as well, right? And he played 26 minutes. They played a close game against Charlotte, a close game against Atlanta. Played 31 and 34 minutes. So pretty much right now, Jabari Parker's blowout run is 26 minutes. And his non-blowout run, mind you, with Bobby Portis out, and he's out for at least another 5 weeks with him out, is around 31 to potentially 34 minutes, depending on how he's playing. Well, this game could get out of hand. But being that Jabari Parker is still reasonably priced, if it stays close and you get your 32 minutes from him, his production has not been that bad recently. And I think this is a spot where you can look to Jabari Parker. Also consider he has multi-position eligibility as well. You know, his usage is 27%. I like that. You know, he can get a little bit of rebounds. He's actually done well in that regard recently. The last few games, he just seems to be playing with more intensity. And maybe the loss of Bobby Portis has opened things up for him just in terms of not having to worry about, because Jabari Parker's never seemed like a guy that was willing to kind of compete for his job. You know, just I'm a lottery pick. And I mean, I don't know the guy, so I could be totally wrong. But I just always got that impression like he never felt like he had to work harder to prove that he belonged out there with the Bucks. It seems like maybe it's helping him that Portis isn't there. Just a personal observation. Brandon Ingram, another spot. Like if the Lakers are all going to do this together, as LeBron says, it is a good spot. It is still a high scoring game. Going to be a high scoring game. I think Brandon Ingram's fine, but I actually prefer Jabari here at a slight discount. Another one is the 6K range is really interesting, Dan. Rudy Gay coming off a big game. He's coming off 2 big games. I'm sorry. He's another one of those guys where Greg Popovich definitely doesn't want to play him for 40 minutes against Dallas. I know that was an overtime game, but he probably doesn't want to play him for 33 minutes against the Lakers like he did. What choice does he have? Like, where is their offense coming from? Jakob Poeltl and Davis Bertans are not doing it. So Rudy Gay's another one of those guys that even if he's not doing what Aldridge is doing or what DeRozan is doing, you know, teams still need more than 1 or 2 players. And Rudy Gay is getting minutes staggered with them. I think the usage actually climbs going forward now that we're seeing him get more involved. He's a pretty solid option here for sure. And then you can throw guys like Kyle Kuzma in, but I think it's a little crowded there with Ingram back. I'm not huge on that, trying to figure out which one of those guys is going to put the work in. I'd rather just assume it's LeBron James because I think it will be LeBron James. And aside from that, I'll go back to the same thing. Karis LeVert, we talked about that game on Monday with the Knicks. And remember, he was terrible. He was awful. But we still got, 30 minutes from him? Around 30 minutes. But he shot 2 for 11. He can do that. And then Hardaway was the other guy we talked about. Hardaway instead dropped 25, 5, and 8. Had a great game. Those guys are volatile because they're super high volume shooters that don't really provide a ton elsewhere every game and can kind of disappear. But they're both perfectly viable tournament options in their respective spots. And if Josh Jackson plays, you want to take that risk, go ahead. But I've soured on him, but he is 4,700, and he was really, really good without Booker last year. but he would need the minutes for sure. And he can't turn the ball over 7 times either.
All right, let's move on to power forward. Anthony Davis, obviously a giant question mark on this slate. Golden State, 11-4 price tag, could have some gigantic upside if he plays.
Did you say Golden Tate?
I did not. I said Golden State, but close enough. I know that's what's on your mind.
Not really too happy with that, actually, but go ahead.
It's a sprained elbow for Davis. We'll see what the prognosis is. You said, obviously, we should know after morning shoot around. Power forward has Blake Griffin here. It has KD. It has Aldridge. Has Rudy Gay. And then we get into a lot of the small forwards we've already spoken about. What are a couple of names here that at least from a position that's been a bit down on the year, maybe you play LeBron and power forward and move on this slate just because of position eligibility. But what are a couple of power forwards you're on?
It's been a pretty weak position this season, huh? I mean, it really has. Like outside of the MPE, it hasn't been a position that is loaded. Aldridge is in play. You prefer DeRozan there, and you kind of prefer Rudy Gay if he's going to get that run at a discounted price point. But Aldridge has been pretty damn consistent himself. I love Aldridge. Whenever Kawhi was out last year, I played him. But he is a bit expensive. Like Aldridge needs to be in the mid to 7K range, mid to high 7K range, and then I feel more comfortable. But against Phoenix, I'm willing to make a few exceptions, right? Like DeAndre Ayton's a freak. The guy's awesome, but he's still a rookie. I think Aldridge just tears this team apart with that elbow jumper that he's so skilled at. And of course, in the post where he and Embiid lead the league in post possessions every single season. I think he puts up big numbers here, but definitely not a core play at that price point. Draymond Green, you're not really getting much from Green, but we've been saying the same about about Clay, and they're totally different players. But Draymond Green is so capable of going out there and putting up like 15, 10, and 12 and 3 blocks with 3 steals. It's at 6,700. I don't know how you can't have at least a dash of Draymond Green against New Orleans, particularly if Davis is out. But even if he isn't, it'll just mean that he plays 36 minutes. So I'm not really worried about that. You mentioned Julius Randle and Nico. If Davis is out, both of them are in play. Both of them are firmly in play. Mirotic, 38 minutes. I said this before in the Utah game. Mirotic played 28 minutes through less than 3 quarters. And so he was on pace to play 36, 38 minutes. He played 38 minutes against Denver. Dude, if you're getting 38 minutes of Mirotic with Davis off the court,
yep,
I really don't care who it is. And I still have a feeling that they keep this game close. The Warriors have this propensity. I know it didn't happen against Chicago, but we've seen it, this propensity to let games stay close, kind of toy with teams in the first half. Hell, the Sixers had like a 30-point lead on them in the first half last year, ended up losing by 25 or something. I think this game stays close, but not just in the first half. I think it stays close throughout, or at least enough to keep the core players on the floor, including Mirotic and including Julius Randle. But see, Randle played 26 minutes in a close game, had a really solid effort. Mirotic is locked into the 35-plus in a close game. And I'll go with the minutes there because I don't see Randle as someone that has a significantly higher ceiling than Mirotic to begin with. Oh, and Paul Millsap is still way too cheap. He's 58. He's 5,800.
No, that is who I was asking about next. So I'm happy you went there first. That's where the chuckle came from. Millsap's talented.
Old, but
yeah, he's still, he's a talented player, and with the minutes that he's getting, 28 to, hopefully 32 on a good night, the potential for a good night is there. Let's close it out with some centers. Obviously, a lot of the power forward talk can translate over here. You do have Andre Drummond against the Nets, where Jared Allen has been playing pretty decent. I know we talked about it on Monday as well. The Nets being pretty efficient at rim protection to start the year. You have Ayton against San Antonio at 7,100. Cantor most likely coming off the bench here against the Pacers at 6,600, and we make our way down. But what are some of the names from the center spot that you like for Wednesday slate?
Yeah, Vonleh, if you wanted to mention, is a value at power forward is fine. Not huge on him, but he saw last game, I think his highest minute total of the season, 29 minutes against Brooklyn. Could definitely have something to do with the blowout, but they've been involved in a lot of blowouts, and that hasn't happened. So I could look further into. I don't know if someone was in foul trouble. This is just a preliminary look. Karl Anthony Towns finally woke up, huh?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. I get that, but with how soft he's been this season, I don't really want to test my luck against Rudy Gobert. Like I don't see lightning striking twice in the same spot. And it's not the same spot. It's Utah. So a little bit of a difference between Utah and JaVale McGee and the Lakers, wouldn't you say? I would. I think DeAndre Jordan, though, facing this Lakers team is really interesting. DeAndre hit 16, 16, 15, 19, 18. Those are his rebound totals over his last 5 games. I mean, get out of here. It's just ridiculous the amount of boards this guy pulls in. But it makes sense because who else on this team is good at rebounding?
Right.
I mean, Doncic will rack up like 5, 6, 7 a game, but you don't have anyone that's like a talented rebounder. None of the guards are siphoning away boards like Westbrook or Simmons do. So DeAndre is just going to soak everything up. And I still think I don't want to say underpriced, but very reasonably priced against the Lakers. I really like him here. Again, the blowout is an issue on the Dallas side. Or it's just possible that this Lakers team is so bad in terms of their ability to play as a cohesive unit that I'm totally wrong and the game stays close. But even if that's the case, LeBron will, if it's the fourth quarter and this game is still competitive at the Staples Center, LeBron's just going to take over. So that's not of concern to me. More so, I'm just not sure how the game plays out. Outside of that, DeAndre Ayton, I love this kid. He's amazing. And he faces a marshmallow center unit of guys like Pau Gasol. And I don't even know who's going to get minutes now because they're all just failing. Like, obviously Aldridge is getting run at the 5, but aside from that, Pirtle hasn't played since the 24th. Bertans started at, I think, the 3 or the 4. Yeah, I think the 3 the other day. Played 9 minutes and then only played a couple more because Rudy Gay started the second half. Like, they really don't – there's not much to do here. I think Ayton is in a solid spot as well, and he still remains very reasonably priced. So those are the guys. Davis, if he's healthy, but we already know that. Rudy Gobert, too. Let me throw Rudy Gobert in there. But I like DeAndre Jordan and Ayton above him, just so we're not tossing too many names out. I think I forgot to mention Drummond, but I told you I'm a little worried about Jared Allen in most cases, but not with Drummond, because Jared Allen's done a good job of defending, but you don't defend someone like Andre Drummond. You just stare up at him, and he just hauls in so many rebounds that he's not a guy that's posting up on you, and he's not playing like back to the basket, where you have a good defender and you're causing tough shots. No, all of his scoring is just coming on easy putbacks or layups, really easy opportunities. So outside of the fact that he is playing the second of a back-to-back, Drummond is once again in play. And a value, Wendell Carter, I have a tough time believing that this will continue, only because I don't know where the minutes are. Like, he played 27, but that game was over from the beginning. And then he had played 22 and 18 in the 2 prior games. One of those was a blowout. Felicio had come back. So he's looking way better than he did earlier in the year. I still think he's viable, but he's not 3,900 4K anymore either. So, you kind of do with that as you please. I think I prefer Vonleh there, but neither of them are really safe options. And, of course, my guy, JaVale McGee, because his price has come back down to a point where I'm willing to play him. You're going to want somebody big out there against Jordan, and they don't really have anyone else that they can trust. It's crazy to think that they can trust JaVale McGee, but they can. He didn't even have a good game last time, but he still played 31 minutes against Karl Anthony Towns. So, yeah, dude, JaVale at 5,700 remains a very viable option on a day where I think he could have like 25 fantasy points at halftime, if not more.
All right.
Yeah,
We will check back on that one and obviously check in on the deep dive, which Dave writes Monday, Wednesday, Friday over at awesemo.com. Again, early bird is the promo code to get in for free for 1 week. And gets you access to everything last I checked. But obviously, when you sign up, you will get full information on what you get. But you get 1 week for free with that promo code. As always, you find Dave on Twitter at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D. Don't forget Sirius XM, Sirius 210.
What about yourself?
Well, no one cares. Sirius 210 XM 87. You find Dave on the show formerly known as Fan Vice Radio. May still be known as that, but you find Dave, and that's what matters most. 5 to 7 on Saturday and Sunday.
7 to 9 on Sunday during football season.
Okay. 7 to 9. They push you off till post game. You're the post game,
which is actually
better.
Yeah, it's actually amazing. It's not just a post game show though, because you still have the 4. Like I was on air when the Rams and Pat when Montgomery.
Sure, when he fumbled.
So I basically get the fourth quarter of most of the 4 p.m. games and then go on to like analysis and recap. It's pretty cool. I would rather do that, do a little bit of live action than have to do, because the show before me, those guys, man, they go from one.
It's all up to it's all
same crew.
Live. Yep.
Stop Hansoning it.
Don't forget, you can find me on Twitter at Dan Strafford. With that said, we wish you the best of luck on Wednesday slate, and tomorrow you get Emac and Adam right here on your DFS Early Bird.